Angie, you're still on?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yep, I can hear you.
All right, sir, we're ready. You may begin.
Thank you. Okay, I have no gavel, but I'm going to call to order the special session of the Madison County Board of Education for Monday, April 6th, 2020. Mary Louise, would you, per our earlier conversation, go ahead and lead us in prayer?
Yes, I'd be happy to. Most gracious Heavenly Father, we do thank you for life itself, and we thank you that you have provided for us in a great way. We just ask tonight, as we look at the decisions that have been made in our system to take care of our children, that you would guide our decisions and give us your wisdom as we move forward. Lord, we pray for the safety of all of those in our school system, whether they be children or employees. And we just ask that you would put a hedge of protection around them, and that you would be with all of us in the days ahead. For we ask these things in the precious and holy name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Go ahead, Mr. Perkins.
Okay. I recommend approval of the agenda dated April 6, 2020.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second for the recommendation of approval of the agenda dated Monday, April 6, 2020. Any discussion? If there is none, all those in favor, well, let me back up. I'm going to need everybody, because of the way we're doing this, and I will go through this in the rules of engagement in just a moment, to acknowledge individually by person. So I'll start with District 1, 2, 3, and 5, with me going last. So I'll start with Nathan.
Can you clarify it's a special session, right?
It's a special session. Did I say regular? I meant to say special.
I don't know. I wasn't listening. Okay.
So I'll start with Nathan.
Aye.
District 2.
Aye.
District 3.
Aye.
District 5.
Yes. Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. So with that in mind, per the governor's proclamation 2 weeks ago, and in order to meet the requirements of the Open Meetings Act, Cynthia and I have been working on a rules of engagement, formalizing how we're going to do these meetings in a virtual manner versus not in person. So bear with me, bear with us all. This is very new to everybody. We're not used to doing this like this. We're used to seeing everybody in person. So bear with me. But I'm going to go ahead and read these rules of engagement. Cynthia did send all of you a copy, so you should have a copy in your email if you want to read along or read later. That's fine. So the meeting has been called to order. The board members present are myself, board president, my vice president, Mr. Nathan Curry, District 2 Representative, Mrs. Angie Bates, District 3 Representative, Mrs. Mary Louise Stowe, and District 5 Representative, Mrs. Sherry Rucker. Also present and active participants in the meeting are Superintendent Mr. Alan Perkins, Sr., and the School Board Attorney, Ms. Cynthia K. Thompson. Good evening and welcome to the special meeting of the Madison County Board of Education. This meeting is called pursuant to the Open Meetings Act provisions of Governor Ivey's first supplemental proclamation of a state of emergency on March 18th, 2020. As part of that proclamation, the board may only deliberate and vote upon those items that fall into two categories: actions necessary to respond to the COVID-19 crisis, and actions necessary to perform essential minimum functions of our board. The agenda was designed with Governor's proclamation in mind. Additionally, our virtual meeting is being taped and will be posted to the Madison County Schools website to allow the public to watch the meeting in its entirety. And we will be posting a summary of the meeting with 12 hours of adjournment, within 12 hours of adjournment of this meeting. That summary, I'm going to just clarify something. That will be a basic summary. So they'll have the video if they choose to watch the video, and then they will have a basic summary of how we voted and what we voted on. The first item in our special session is a rules of engagement. In order to have a meeting where everyone can be equally heard and to keep the virtual camera from flipping from face to face, based on who is talking, we will need to revert back to a more formal process where board members who wish to speak can unmute and ask to be recognized by the chair before speaking. Or board members can physically raise their hand in order to be recognized and then unmute to request to speak. I think I'm just going to ask that you unmute and ask to speak. I don't think that we'll be talking over each other that much. I will be watching the split screens and looking for raised hands and unmuting. I will say the chair recognizes whomever has raised their hands or requests to unmute, and that person will be allowed to speak. Additionally, we have items that will need to be voted on. In order to accurately report the vote, we will need to have a roll call vote on each item. I will always start with District 1, move to Districts 2, 3, and 5, with the chair, myself, being the last to vote. In the future, should we need to have an executive session, Google Hangout and other staff will disconnect from the virtual meeting. Once we have received a signal from our IT team, we will conduct the executive session with the board members, superintendent, and board attorney present. When we have concluded the executive session, we will let Google Hangout and any remaining staff know to sign back in through text message. We do not have an executive session scheduled for this evening. So, Mr. Perkins, I would ask that you make a recommendation to adopt these rules of engagement.
I recommend that we adopt the rules of engagement as outlined.
Do I have a motion to accept the rules of engagement for virtual board meetings and a second?
Motion.
Second.
So District 2 motions and District 3 seconded. And I have a motion to require all board members and any administrators presenting to the board to raise their hand or unmute either physically or through Google Hangout and be recognized by the chair prior to speaking, and to hold all votes and motions before the board in a roll call manner as follows: Districts 1, 2, 3, 5, and then 4. With that, Mr. Perkins, you can continue on with the agenda. Does anybody have any questions about how we're going to be doing this? I think it'll be a little stilted tonight as we get used to doing this. I fully expect that we'll do at least one more meeting in this manner this month, possibly into early May. So this will be the norm for our meetings moving forward until we are cleared to go back into a more formal, reduced physical presence type of environment. District 2.
Did we need to vote on that? I know we motioned in second to accept, but we didn't vote that I'm aware
I thought
of.
we voted. My bad. I'm sorry. So yes, we do need to vote. So I need a roll call vote for District 1.
Aye.
District 2.
Aye.
District 3. I think we lost District 3. It just says District 2.
I got knocked off, but I'm back on. Aye.
Okay. And
Sorry.
District 5.
Aye. Can you tell me how to mute?
There should be a little microphone at the bottom. Are you using your Google Chromebook, Sherry?
No.
Okay. That
On your screen, you should have, if you tap the actual picture, you should have 3 dots in the middle. You should have a microphone, a phone, and a camera. You would just actually click on the camera. I mean the microphone.
and I believe I can mute and unmute people as well. But I'm not going to try that right now. And I am a yes on that vote as well. The motion passes. So,
I recommend approval of the minutes dated February the 6th, February the 11th, February 25th, 2020, and March 3rd, March 12th, and March 18th, 2020.
Motion.
Second.
District 2 motions, District 1 seconds. The recommendation for approval of the minutes dated February 6th, 11th, and 25th, and March 3rd, 12th, and 18th, 2020. Is there any discussion on the minutes? If there is none, I'll start a roll call vote. District 1.
Aye.
District 2.
Aye.
District 3.
Aye.
District 5.
Aye.
And myself as I. Okay. Move on to informational items, I believe.
Okay. Informational items, blended learning academic plan. And I do want to just start by saying that these are unprecedented times that we're living in. We all acknowledge that. And a lot of the plans in which we have created or are creating are plans that we would have put into planning stage well over a year in advance. And because of the dynamics of the time, we're having to make decisions to make sure that our kids are getting the things that they need. So one of the things that we wanted to go over and discuss is our blended learning academic plan. And Mr. Solly is going to go through that plan right now.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. It's good to see everybody. One of the things that, and we'll push this out to each of you, I think Ms. Bass mentioned it in the comment section, but on my screen right now, it looks like the Brady Bunch on steroids. I've got, you can download a Google extension called Grid, and it allows you to see everybody that's in the, that's in the meeting. We've had as many as 80 people in a meeting, and you can see little thumbnails of either their video or, whatever their icon is that represents them. So it may be something that, depending on how many more meetings you do like this, it kind of helps to be able to see everybody. There's also another extension called Nod that just informationally, Mr. Weiss, it allows somebody to raise their hand and, without having to unmute and, do it that way too. So those may be a couple of extensions that we want to try. I appreciate y'all giving us an opportunity to kind of talk about our blended learning plan this evening. A lot of, it's been definitely been a team effort from our district staff, from our instructional staff, and, just appreciate all those that have, worked the last 3 weeks to kind of fine tune it. And, one of the challenges that we've faced in building this plan is every time we kind of get to a point where we're like, yeah, we've answered all the questions. Not that any part of the plan is perfect because we're not in school in a traditional sense, but every time we feel like we've kind of answered the questions, then we get another curveball thrown at us through whether it's, a stay-at-home order put in place or, things like that have kind of come up that, we just kind of had to adjust on the fly. So I am going to share my screen and put up a, y'all should be able to see my PowerPoint, I believe.
I think, yeah, I see it. Well,
Yes.
Everybody good now? Okay. So as we work, and if we would, it may work best if I just have a chance to kind of go through this, and then I'm sure there'll be questions that we can address at the end of it and stuff. So, but in building our blended learning plan, like Mr. Perkins said, we're certainly in uncertain times. We really worked hard to align to our core values as a district. So one of the very first things that we did as, department, as a staff, we kind of went back to our pillars of excellence, looked at our mission statement. What's our core value there? And the very first sentence of that, talks about that our mission is to create high quality public schools. And there's a lot of research out there on on the tenets of a high quality public school. And the three things that the research is pretty well universal over are the three things on your screen. Number one, that we provide a safe environment for our kids and our staff in this situation. Our physical safety, our social emotional safety, those things. The second tenet of that is that we provide a culture of care and support for all those that we're entrusted with. And then the third thing is to provide a guaranteed curriculum that encourages learning at high levels. So we've sort of built this plan with those three tenets in mind. Our district priorities, the safety and health of our students and staff is our top priority. We want to provide support for our students, parents, our teachers, make a good faith effort to help all of our students, create a clear and efficient plan that our staff can execute, communicate frequently with students, parents, and teachers, and ultimately bring closure to the 2019-2020 school year. Some student-specific priorities that we've had to, kind of keep in mind, whether it's from guidance from the State Department of Ed, whether it's guidance from the U.S. Department of Ed, whether it's just, priorities that we value as a Madison County School District. But some of the groups that we probably have had to pay a little extra attention to, first of all, is our students on track to graduate. We will have approximately 1,500 students graduate annually from the Madison County school system. And, I think we can kind of only imagine, I know some that are in this meeting tonight have children that are seniors this year, and to think about everything as a one-time event in their life that's been disrupted, I think it is incumbent upon us to do everything that we possibly can do to make sure that we are, doing everything we can to help them graduate on time so that they can transition into whatever that next phase of life is for them. We've also had to be mindful of our students with disabilities. So those are our special needs kids, or students with 504s, students, not necessarily this isn't a disability, but it's unique, are students who are English language learners. So kind of being mindful of them and what their needs are. Advanced placement is one of our core instructional values in Madison County School. We lead the state in AP enrollment and success and all those kinds of things. Because of this school closure, it has had a significant impact on how AP is moving forward. So with those tests now being at home and all that, that's just another big group of our kids that we kind of had to keep in mind. And then those who were failing their course, that's another group, is how to help our students be successful. So these are district expectations for all of our teachers. Doesn't matter if they're gen ed, special ed, whatever. These are just expectations that we have, but it's to maintain at home office hours each day, minimum of 3 hours. Each of the schools have set those times for their school. It's been great to watch how our high school families have worked together to kind of coordinate those hours throughout the day with the complete understanding. We've got families with multiple children that are in school in different age groups. And so I know one of our families, their elementary schools are kind of doing the 8 to 11 time slot. Their middle school's 10 to 1, and then high school's 12 to 3. Sort of thinking about when their students are likely to be awake, to be engaged in their lessons. But it's been nice to see how they've worked together. The expectation of our teachers is that at a minimum, they're accessible during these office hours to provide whatever support they need to provide, primarily academic support, but also social emotional support for their students if needed. Mr. Perkins has made it clear to them that if teachers become aware of needs of our students, that, to pass that along to their counselors, their administrators, their social workers, whoever would be the appropriate contact for that. We're expecting our teachers to have at least one weekly meeting with their class, their homeroom, whatever that looks like for the age group that we're talking about. And primarily that meeting is really to check in on their social emotional status, you know, obviously with parents losing jobs, with students not being able to come to school and get meals, just the fact that the world has kind of been turned on its head 3 weeks ago, you know, that there's a lot going on. And I think right now it's really, really important that our students are able to see our teachers, somebody that they know cares about them, someone that they have trust in, that they're able to see them at least weekly. So some of our teachers are doing this in small groups. Some are doing it with the classrooms. You know, how that works is, you know, really up to the teacher. But like that, as much as the family allows and can do, we'd like for that opportunity to happen each week. We expect our teachers to make and document every effort to provide services to all students with disabilities, and that includes students with 504. So, you know, to really reach out to our families and make sure that we're just building a partnership and we're continuing to work together to figure out what's the best way to support you in this new framework that we're working in. Our elective teachers, we're asking them to submit weekly lessons to their principals. We're expecting teams, our collaborative teams, our professional learning community, collaborative teams to continue to meet each week. This is a great opportunity for them to build on their work next year. And we've spoken with our administrators about how important that is, because whenever we do return, and we will return, whenever that is, though, it is going to be critically important that we hit the ground running and are able to quickly ascertain where our students are, and to be very, very laser focused on what the most essential things that our students need to know and be able to do. That is going to be a critical component of our district. And the last expectation, there is no face-to-face instruction allowed. That's a direct mandate from our State Department. And obviously now with our stay-at-home order, it's the law, but all lessons will be provided through a distance learning format. So some of our unique groups, so with our special education teachers, in addition to those things that I just mentioned, you know, again, their expectations are to make a good faith effort to meet the needs of all their students with that have IEPs. Ms. Stump and her team have done an excellent job of building a distance learning plan for each special education student. Obviously, again, a lot of the things that are in our students' IEPs just physically cannot be accomplished through the means that we have available to us. So these digital learning plans will serve as an interim kind of plan for each of our students with learning or that have special needs or have disabilities. And so our special education teachers will be having meetings with parents throughout our district to go over this plan and describe the services that we can offer and how those services can benefit their child. The district learning plan will document what services, as I just said, that we can reasonably provide. And our special education teachers, again, they'll provide, or they'll be available during office hours each day. For 504s, that's our general ed teachers' responsibility. So again, teachers are reaching out to homes, talking to parents and students, looking for ways that they can provide any needed accommodations for those students to be able to do their work successfully. And then our English language learners, those teachers will be providing weekly language acquisition lessons for EL students, making contact with those kids on their caseloads, hosting weekly virtual meetings for those students. A couple of big things, really communicating with those families, especially our non-English speaking parents, to make sure that they have whatever it is that we can support them with, and then to continue regular compliance responsibilities that that they have. And then the last kind of special group are OSR pre-K. And again, they'll provide weekly lessons and provide additional optional resources that are age appropriate for pre-K students. They'll use one of the delivery platforms like Google Meet or Zoom, whatever is, to instruct parents and kind of some how-to steps for their students. And obviously, they'll continue to comply with all OSR expectations. The bulk of our plan are kind of the next two slides. So what we did was we identified grade levels or content area teams across the district and have tasked them with creating a district lesson plan. Again, if we think back to creating a guaranteed viable curriculum, one of the big things that we wanted to ensure was that our lessons were as equitable as possible. We were concerned that we turned that loose to 1,300 people's own definition of what a lesson should look like, especially creating something that's brand new like this, that may be a pretty big challenge to overcome. So we felt like if we made our team smaller, we could provide the kind of support needed to help guide those teams through creating lessons that could be used by everybody throughout the district. And I've just got to say, I mean, like, my goodness, it has, I'll just say it has done my heart good to see the kind of work that has been done. First of all, we told teams about this last week during spring break with the expectation you'll have this week to do the work. Of course, they all jumped in immediately and started working on it. And the lessons that have been shared with me they're fantastic. They've just taken the charge that's been given to them and not only not complained about it, but embraced it and have really just done some fantastic work with this. These district teams, all their work's completed virtually. Nobody's, being expected or encouraged to do anything other than work virtually. The leaders of each of these are instructional coaches, our resource specialists, some of our administrators are leading these teams. They're working this week to get those lessons done. Each team is tasked with 2 expectations. First of all, to complete 6 weekly digital lesson plans. That's what we're referring to as our digital backpack. Alita Stender, Lauren Smith, Aurora Yancey, all of them have been working together to kind of build the structure and bones on our website. So as soon as we have our digital lessons ready to go and upload, I think that'll be a pretty seamless process to get that going. And then we're also working to develop corresponding print documents because we know there's a fairly significant portion of our district that either doesn't have available technology or, more importantly, doesn't have access to internet. So just having that understanding and making sure that we have one or the other available to everybody. And then we've also encouraged these teams to include their special education teacher, just so they're kind of watching what that lesson development looks like and that it's appropriate. So the actual lesson design, again, the teams are kind of tasked with doing 2 things that we just talked about. Our State Department of Education identified critical standards that they encourage districts to look at, but we've empowered our teachers because we have spent the last 2 years getting crystal clear on what our essential standards are as a district. That's really what's driving this work. But they are looking at those critical standards that our State Department has shared with us as well. We really, as the lessons have been designed, we've asked teams to consider, that this is something that should take about 2 hours per day to work, for students to complete. Again, thinking about homes that have multiple kids in it, that may have limited devices, parents that are working and having to help their children after work is over, single parent homes, just the multitude of things that families are facing right now. We felt like, based off our research and talking to other districts and kind of districts that maybe have had a little more experience in looking at this, we just kind of settled on, felt like that was a reasonable amount of time. Some other things that are guiding the lesson design is trying to be mindful of what parents can help students with. They're not a professional educator. They are the first educators for their children, though. And so as we're building these lessons, we're trying to do so with it in mind, what parents can help them with the full expectation that our teachers stand ready to do whatever it is that they can do to support this work. We've really strongly encouraged our teams to give priority to lessons that will help prepare students for the next grade or subject. This is something, again, we talked for years about the summer slide. Well, that summer has been extended now by at least 9 weeks. So, to really try to be mindful, what is the most important standards? What are the most important things that kids need to know and be able to do to be successful in the next grade or subject area? That's where we're really focusing. And then, with safety in mind, all of these copies, we'll make these at the district print shop. We didn't want teachers, going to school and multiple people to be around a copy machine and just, managing social distance with people trying to do the same job. So that's kind of our lesson design. And the distribution process, again, the weekly lessons will be online starting Monday on our district website. And again, Alita's created on the homepage a good visual of where to go to get that. The hard copy lessons at least by Thursday, possibly before then. Just depends on getting them printed, getting that turned around, and assuming no other more restrictive orders come in, about our movements and stuff and everything. We want to have those out early next week so that parents can start coming by at least by next Thursday to get those. And then we've got a handful of cases, not many, but some where people don't have transportation, or there's just unique situations that maybe the best method of getting that lesson to that home is either someone in our district delivering it to a front porch or delivering it by U.S. mail. So I know grading has been something that has been discussed, and it's something that we've bandied about quite a bit and stuff, and thinking about this. But based off what we feel like our research and best practice in this, all the experts around grading and stuff have, as studying their work and everything, has kind of led us to this point here. But for grades 1 through 8, obviously kindergarten has a standards-based report card, so theirs is not a numeric grade like the other grades. So theirs are based off the standards that they would have mastered after the third 9-week period. But for grades 1 through 8, we'll take the average of those first 3 9 weeks, and that will be the student's grade for that course. For students in grades 9 through 12, so understand that because they're on a block schedule, and even within the block schedule, there are students that are on a traditional block, meaning that they take 4 classes first semester, 4 classes second semester. There are kids that are on an AB schedule, meaning that their course runs year long, but on alternating days. So they're in class the same number of days. They just, those days are stretched out over the course of the year. And we have periods in our schedule that run all year, and we've got several different options. We have students obviously that go to career tech, and their classes, how those are credited and stuff and everything. So a lot of different variables to take into account when we're thinking about how to do grading for grades 9 through 12. So when we talk about that third 9-week reporting period, it's you kind of have to think a little differently than grades 1 through 8, where you have 3 9 weeks, or in a traditional year, you would have 4 9 weeks of grades for the same course. So that third 9-week reporting period for a student that's on an AB schedule, it would be, they would have received a grade after the first reporting period, the second reporting period, and they would have gotten one for the third reporting period. The number of days that it took to get that grade would be the same as a traditional class. And then you've got your kids on a traditional block schedule. So basically they had half the class, and that's what their grade would be based off of. Next topic, textbooks and technology. So we spent a good bit of time today at the district leadership team talking about Chromebook distribution, what that would look like, and how we could do that safely and make sure that students and parents know about acceptable use policies, and how we can manage that. But if at all possible, we definitely would love to make Chromebooks available to students who do not have a device at home. Tentatively, that's looking at next week, the week of the 13th sometime, and more information to come on that. Students certainly can use any of their textbooks that they took home, but we're not allowing students back into school to receive books or materials or anything right now. And then for textbooks and libraries that kids do have at home, whenever we return, hopefully in August, they will return those at that time. And then also our IT department put together some good communication tech tools and distance learning for that we've shared with our schools. So kind of our final thoughts, just again, every new day right now, we've got to control what we can control and do what we can do. And again, hats off to all of our staff. I know this phrase has kind of been coined by a few people now, but we sort of feel like we've Apollo 13'd education as much as we can, just getting together and trying to figure out how to make this situation the best that it can possibly be. Obviously, we want to promote and model, and I just commend our board tonight for meeting in this manner here. I think it sets a great model for all entities and how you can still have good governance but model safety guidance, and that's certainly what we want to do for all of our schools. Enhance relationships with students and colleagues. It's a great time for us to build those with our homes, with our parents, with our students, and then quite frankly, lastly, is to provide instructional support. I mean, if we kind of think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we've got to meet our students' basic needs first. And Dr. Ballard and our CNP workers, I think about the 16,000 plus meals that have been served over the last few weeks. I know Mr. Trey mentioned the other day, I think over 300 plus NOVA counseling sessions have taken place that they've helped do that. A lot of services have been directly guided by school people interacting with our homes and stuff and everything. So meeting those basic needs first obviously will allow our students the opportunity to learn, and so that's where our focus has been. So with that, myself, whoever, Mr. Perkins, anyone else that wants to jump in, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see everyone again.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Jerry.
Yeah. First of all, I really appreciate you doing the consistent across the district. I think that was a great idea. Just everybody gets the best instruction equally. But I have two questions. One is, can you kind of discuss the virtual school and does it offer any opportunities to any students, and also access learning?
Yeah, so with our virtual school, again, another group of students that are on a very different plane. So in working with Miss Shoemate there and Mr. Perkins, we generally speaking, if a student, kind of depending on where they were in the course, okay, depending on did we stop our grading there, or did we allow them to finish out the course? I think we said it because their courses are divided into, again, in most cases, into two parts. Madison County Schools semester 1 course and a semester 2 course. So a lot of those students had completed 75+% of semester 2 course, meaning that they were almost finished with an entire year's worth of instruction. And so we left it up to students, depending on what their ratio of completion was, whether or not they finished with that grade or not. The second part of that question, Ms. Rucker, I'm sorry. So virtual school, and then what was the other? I apologize.
Yeah, and virtual school, that was interesting what you just said, but also I was really thinking about other students jumping into virtual school at this point.
Yeah, and I would defer to Mr. Perkins right now as to, if kids are transferring or doing anything like that. I mean, that
Yeah.
I wouldn't have an answer to that one.
Yeah, in terms of jumping into virtual now, I did talk to Ms. Shoemate about that, and what she told me was, or what we discussed was, the way the program operates. If you transfer from a school to go into a virtual program, it starts you from the information from the very beginning, because it's a whole different school and a whole different program that a student's going in. So that student would actually start and then start from the beginning in that particular course. And at this particular point, it would not be a course. It wouldn't be advantageous to a student to be able to complete that entire course at this point, the way that program in Odyssey-ware is actually set up.
Okay. And the other part of, can you hear? You can hear me. The other part of the question was access learning, what the state offers. Is there any opportunity there?
Yeah. So again, this is kind of how we've looked at, again, trying to be as equitable as possible and stuff. With our access classes, we have about 100 students across the district that are taking access classes. It's probably about 50-50 students that are taking foreign language courses. At one of our schools offered an American Sign Language course. So probably almost a fourth of that 100 students are taking an American Sign Language course. So that course, from the state's perspective, that course will continue as is. The kids will get direct instruction. They can take tests. They will have that course available to them. So we've given the kids the option. You can take your grade as is and be done with it just like everybody else. But because that course is offering, there is nothing about that course that's changing. It's being taught the same way. It's being assessed the same way. If a student is enrolled in that class, they've got everything that they had when, a month ago, before we got into this, before we had this national emergency, which is different than, so some students that are taking Odyssey-ware, for instance, we're not allowing those tests to be taken at home, because they're not proctored. If a student is taking it away from our, where we would normally have them come into the lab, those tests are they're static tests. They're not they're not redone every year and stuff. And we don't want the test to become compromised by allowing it to be done in an unproctored situation. Okay. It's not that I'm not terribly fearful of cheating on the test, but we do have to maintain the integrity of those tests and make sure that, they're not copied and shared and distributed and, kind of in that manner and stuff. So.
Okay, I guess nobody else has any questions, but I have one more. So just thinking about, I would have never thought we had this situation. So what if we have the same thing going on in the fall, where you're going to have to take some grades? I mean, are you planning for that?
Yeah, and great question, and that's actually one of the very first questions we had today with our district leadership team. Talking about stimulus funds that, with the first large stimulus package that Congress passed, each district will get some funding, kind of loosely based off of our Title I allocation and stuff and everything. But one of the main purposes of those funds is to make sure that it doesn't say it specifically, but I don't think it's too difficult to read between the lines on it, that these funds are to make sure that school districts can improve their technology capabilities, that they can improve their connectivity capabilities and stuff. In case of the scenario, Ms. Rucker, exactly what you're saying. If this scenario continues into the fall, we probably likely will have to look, we're going to have to do more. We're going to have to be better prepared. And obviously we've got time to do that. So, and there may be actually some funding to help be better prepared come fall if that's necessary.
And I do want to add to that. I've actually had a meeting scheduled today with an organization to look at where we possibly may be in the fall in terms of funding, in terms of broadening our opportunities to go into this and be able to supply the needs of our students from a virtual standpoint. I'm meeting again with an organization, and I won't say their name because we're in funding negotiations of where we possibly can get some additional assistance to build an infrastructure in that direction. So had a meeting today, and we'll have another one tomorrow on that very issue of looking at building for the future if we have something like this to come up again, or if this is extended further.
Tim, you were talking about exams and it was garbled on my end, so I apologize if I'm asking you to repeat something you've already talked about. But were you talking specifically about exams for the virtual academy to Sherry's question, or were you talking about AP exams? I'm just curious as to how we're going to do the AP exams and keep that clean.
Yeah, so two different things.
Yeah.
The exams that I was concerned about are the exams that are in our OdysseyWare curriculum, which is what our virtual school uses. We don't want those assessments to be compromised in any way. So that's why we really make sure they're proctored and stuff. But for our advanced placement students, their test this year will be done at home. And so that's one of the things that, we had an hour and a half meeting with our administrators today, and Liz Smith, who's our district AP coordinator, has been doing a magnificent job of working with our AP teachers and AP coordinators at the schools to make sure that they're getting a list of our students who are taking AP courses that do not have a Chromebook or do not have a Chromebook and and access to the internet. We want to make sure that, because that test means obviously has huge significance for our kids, and being able to possibly collect college courses and, you know, a lot of things that it impacts and stuff. So we do want to try to help them be as successful in those courses as possible. The College Board has really done a magnificent job of providing lessons on YouTube by some of the, I'd say some of the second best AP teachers there are, because we probably have the best ones. But but some really good AP teachers have been doing YouTube lessons, and then our teachers have also been, you know, continuing to meet with those students. But so AP will be an at-home test that's being communicated and supported and all of that. But Odyssey Ware was the other assessments I was talking about.
And I already know the answer, I think, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What steps are we going to take to mitigate the corruption of the exams and or the proctoring of those AP? Because normally those are proctored exams, you know, in the classroom. So is there a software that we can buy or that we can use to control it? You know, you started on this time, you get this much out, you got to finish it, and maybe a camera or something like that to monitor it. I don't know.
Yeah, that will not be our responsibility to ensure the fidelity and validity of the test. That will be on the College Board to do. It is a time test. It is very specific in what the students have to do. I know with one of my own children who is working virtually through his college courses right now that they have soft. He came complaining about it the other day. Dad, I had to take a picture of the entire room I was in. So there is software out there, and I'm sure they will use something like that to try to limit that as much as possible.
Okay, just curious. Was there anybody else that had any questions of Tim?
Ms. Bates has her hand up.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Nathan.
How are we to get the Chromebooks to the students who need them?
Yeah. So again, that was a large part of our conversation today with Mr. Malone and Mr. Wilson, talking with our principals, and with this health crisis just continuing to escalate, it's a little nervous. I know Miss Bass was texting me right before this meeting, just brainstorming ideas. How can we most efficiently, most safely execute the transfer of these devices from our school personnel to our homes and stuff and everything? So it would be done similar to the feeding program, Mr. Curry. I mean, that would be a similar mindset, but the idea's even been thrown out there to handle it like our grocery stores are doing with groceries now, maybe having parents sign up for a time, have a parking slot numbered, and if you're in slot number 1, then this is what you've signed up to get, and it'll be put in your trunk, and as limited exposure as possible. But really just trying to exhaust all efforts to figure out what's the safest way. How can we maintain, good internal controls of our devices going out kind of deal, and then also maintaining the acceptable use part of this as well.
Okay. Our last question I have, and I appreciate you guys putting together a plan, a best effort plan for our students. I think considering the circumstances, it's just incredible that you guys have these teams that are working together to build up these plans. The question in regards to technology, and Mark may be the one to answer this question, but I know we use Google Meet Hangouts right here. There's also a segment of teachers who have used Zoom as well. Has there been any guidance on best practices as far as cybersecurity, as far as how to secure your meeting properly, so we don't have situations where teachers, you have anonymous people coming into their sessions? Have there been any guidance around that?
Yes, there is a hack associated with Zoom that we're aware of, and we're preparing a document now, a guidance about how you can communicate with your parents and also your students as well. We'll use our BBCom to help do that as well. We'll use Google Chat if we need to. We've opened that up for the kids to communicate back to the teachers. We've got several other little tidbits we're putting on this guide that will be sent out as one big packet when we're ready to have all our official guides ready to roll out to that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of Tim?
Tim,
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to tell you how appreciative I am. I know y'all have worked very, very hard, and I know this is not easy. But, I think every student in Madison County will benefit to the maximum amount that they can under these situations, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I had just a couple other ones. On the people that are failing, and so they're going to get the opportunity not to fail. Is that going to be denoted as a credit recovery, or could they go from an F to an A, or how does that work?
If this is one of those cases where I wish I had a crystal ball and could tell when this, thing's going to be over. What the guidance that we're giving our schools right now is if a kid has a failing grade, we can give them an incomplete and allow them to either, if it makes sense, to finish the course through Odyssey Ware or something like that in the fall. I think that option exists. As long as they're within our credit recovery guidelines, they could take a credit recovery course and go that route. It's kind of one of those things that the hard part to answer for that is if we go back in August or if we go back in January, or kind of not knowing when that going back thing is. If it's in August, it'll be similar to what I just said. For right now, just so that report cards can be run, kid probably would get an incomplete with the notation that they were failing, and have that opportunity to make it up when they come back. So.
Anybody else? Any other questions?
Yeah, I don't have a question, but I did want to point out that communication is, as we all have talked about over the years, an excessively difficult thing to do. And I wanted to congratulate everyone. I've had the opportunity to not be so socially distant, being that 80% of us are still working at the hospital. And so I get the opportunity to talk with multiple people daily. And I have yet to speak to a parent or a spouse of a teacher that I might come into contact with that doesn't completely understand what we're doing. And I think that says a lot for how you guys have communicated, and I appreciate that.
Thank you, Angie. Okay. Ms. Perkins?
So we're going to actually transition to item B, our technology grant. Mr. Wilson, you want to go ahead and present?
Okay, when we started this out, I was contacted probably 2 or 3 months ago about a grant called a RUS grant, a Rural Utilities Grant, that would really benefit a lot of our students out there. I'm going to try to share a screen with you. The grant is a federal grant. Let's see here. Here we go. And the beauty of the grant is what it will provide. We're going for 4 areas of the grant. I shared with this in your folder as well. Oh, shoot. Here we go. Okay, and the grant's pretty detailed about what it involves and all of that. But the beauty of it is we get down to page 18. Well, not 18, I think. Let's see. And my internet connection's slow. Well, we're trying to hit 4 areas here. I know that's pretty bad, isn't it? And what we're going to do is do the STEM project, which would allow every school to be on the same page. Another portion of this would be basically sharing classes between. This is all associated with distance learning, which comes in really handy right now at this time. What we could do if we had an AP science teacher at, say, Madison County, and they wanted to share with New Hope, we'd be able to share back and forth content. So a few students at New Hope could then join the class that's offered at Madison County. That's another one. Another one we want to do is bring the curriculum to everybody, all grade levels. We've had a ton of requests for like virtual field trips and all that. The problem with the virtual field trips is we do not have enough technology in the schools to actually do that. Sure, we can do it like we're doing it now on a Chromebook, but when you try to present that up to a whole class, it's very difficult. So this grant would help in that as well. We're also looking at workforce development and college career readiness that we'll be able to do different classes at different schools and allow more people to contribute. We could have a class taught at one school that could be shared amongst all of our 5 high schools, or we could, the robotics team in the middle school could discuss their project and how they're working with the other middle schools. The grant is available for up to $1 million. We're asking for around $900,000, and our match is 15%. And I thought this would be a relatively easy thing, but with everybody gone for the last 3 weeks, it's been hard to communicate and get paperwork that we need. Miss O'Bannon's been wonderful about this, and she has prepared a match letter to go along with the grant. And then Miss Thompson is also, which y'all will see this in your packet too, a resolution letter that says we're all for this and we want to go for this. But another thing that's really going to helpful as well, we're going to create a hub site at the district office. And what that will be is basically a full-blown recording studio. So we could do distance learning activities, or we could do professional development activities. We could record those with nice audio, nice lighting, and really professional grade equipment. And then we could put that on a video server, which we would host at the district level, and could share that out, because we're doing some great things, but we're only doing it with 30 people at a time. This way, it would allow us to share it with everybody. So basically what would happen is you would have this kind of screens at each school, but they would be big screens, like a 75-inch, which would have our people on one side and could have the lesson plan being presented on the other side. And the students could interact with that with headphones and microphones and interact with the teacher just like they were a regular part of the class. It's really a great opportunity for us. And with 15%, it's kind of a win-win for everybody that's involved. And I'm open for questions.
So Mark, this obviously isn't something that we're going to be able to use at right now. I mean, this is something that will come into play once we're back in the classroom and back in the hard stand buildings, correct? Correct.
The way the grant works, they gave us a hard deadline of like the end of this week to turn the grant in. What will happen, we'll probably start getting the equipment next fall. Next spring, we'll start our virtual field trips. We'll be able to do that for everybody. The robotics teams can communicate. And then we've talked with various departments about even offering a stipend for a teacher, because say I'm a teacher at Sparkman High, I will have 5 students at New Hope High that want to join my AP biology or any other course we design. Then that teacher would get a little bit of stipend to have those other kids basically in their class. So it's a win for our kids and it's a win for our teachers too. We think we'll get them really involved in it by offering everything equal to every school.
Mark, is there any additional staffing needs as it relates to this? I mean, are this all just equipment?
Well, this is equipment and training. What we hope to do on the staff, say if I need a proctor for New Hope High School, with the equipment we've got and headphones and microphones, we think we could actually set them in the corner of the library or another classroom that's doesn't have a lot of activity, and that same teacher could kind of monitor what the kids are doing. the instructor will see exactly what's going on. So if the kids, get out of line, she can address them. But we hope to have somebody either viewing with a video camera at another location, like somebody in the office could be viewing these 3 or 4 kids that are taking it at this particular class, or we could actually have a proctor.
So is there any new technologies, or are you just extending what you currently have? I mean, is it, as far as back-end technologies, will you need staff to be retrained in your IT team to help support this, or what other
We think
resources?
we can handle it's basically using Polycom equipment, which we're all pretty familiar with that. So the training part's not going to be that difficult. And with the grant, we are getting like 10 days of training, which we'll do that in clusters and train the people in the school. Of course, my people will be there as well, because we'll be heavily involved in this. But it'll basically be using Zoom meetings back and forth, because it gives you a little more functionality than just a Google Meet.
Okay.
So the idea is the New Hope kids would be virtually learning. Bartman kids, just in your examples, would be normal.
Yes, they would just be a part of the class, and the teacher presenting at Sparkman High would see those kids, could say, "Hey, John, at New Hope Elementary, what was your question? I saw your hand up." So they would just be part of the class. And I've done this in the past, and there's a little bit of a weak learning curve. It seems to be over that. They're just part of the class, and everybody talks to them just like they were part of sitting next door to them.
So essentially, we're going to be able to offer AP classes, potentially AP classes, expand our AP programs out to parts of the county that don't have particular AP classes or other types of things.
We could offer any class.
Yeah, any class, but okay.
Mark, this sounds very familiar to what we used to do in Madison County with the Polycom classrooms inside of several schools. Sparkman had one, New Hope had one, Madison County. So this is kind of a new version of that technology.
It is. It's a new version. It's a lot simpler to use and a lot more dependable than OH.324 stuff we used back then. So it's really easy for our teachers to use, and it should be almost as easy as this is to use for us. It'll be even easier for our students to use it. And what we'll do, and basically this is for us to share between ourselves. We'll share content from one school to the other, and we can keep expanding this. And, we could have a virtual field trip from Legacy about their pond, going to the other schools. And the little kids can get involved. A second grade at one elementary school could talk to a second grade at another elementary school about projects they're working on together. It's just a way that we can provide more content and more curriculum to everybody, and all being on the same page.
Sounds like a good idea to me.
So the 15%. Did I step on somebody? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Cynthia. I'm not on your computer. I just was going to explain why the resolution is required.
Okay.
It's just a formality that's part of his application process. The form that you have for the resolution was written by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. I think Sue sent it to you. Is that correct, Mark?
Oh, you're kind of breaking up there, but basically what it is, it's just a resolution that everybody's on the same page, that we want to proceed and go for this grant on the federal funds.
Yeah, it's just documenting the authorization piece. And then, so tomorrow, if the board approves it, I will type in and set your signatures up like electronic signatures, and then I can get that to Mark with the letter that says the authorization has been granted.
Do I need? Go ahead, Mary Louise.
I just want to go on record as saying that a lot of this sounds good, the virtual field trips and all of that, but I have some reservations about the smaller high schools losing staff because they would be having to take things online that they may not choose to. So just something to consider. I'm not opposed to this, but just because a child is at New Hope or at Madison County, they deserve to have a teacher in the room with them.
Noted. The 15%, Mark, is it anywhere from 130 to 150? Do we know what the exact amount is?
Miss O'Bannon put that together. I think it's 153. It's either 153 or 157.
Okay, I probably didn't get a chance to see that. I'm sorry.
It's, can you hear me, Mr. Weiss?
Yes, ma'am.
It's $116,315.
Okay.
Oh, awesome.
Okay. All right. And Cynthia, do I need to read the resolution out loud?
I emailed everyone a copy late this afternoon.
Okay, so does everybody have a copy that they can reference at some point, either during the meeting or that later on this evening? Nathan, do you have a copy of it?
I was looking. Yes, I believe I do.
Okay. Angie, do you have a copy?
Give me
It's
I'm
one
pretty sure I
paragraph.
do. I just was going to try to pull it up.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, it's one paragraph long. If you
I can go
chose to read
ahead
it.
and read it, and that's fine. I'll tell you what. Why don't we wait until we get to the portion of the meeting? Oops, hold on, wrong computer. Get to the portion of the meeting where we are approving the. I believe there's a recommendation for approval of the technology grant. I can go ahead and read it at that point in time, and then the rest of you can look for it. So, any other questions from Mark at this point?
Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. Mr. Perkins.
Did not mute myself. Administrative items. Letter A, I recommend approval of the Verizon Wi-Fi hotspots.
Motion.
Second.
Second.
I have a motion from District 1 and a second from District 2. Any discussion on this? I think that for those of you that are not familiar with this, we're purchasing 600 Alan 600 Wi-Fi hotspots to be distributed out to. I'll let you explain.
Yes, so we're purchasing, like Dave said, 600 Wi-Fi hotspots so that we can make sure that those students within our district who don't have access can have access to internet, starting basically with our seniors, making sure that our special populations who don't have access, our AP students who need to take the AP test who don't have access, and other students within our district to make sure that they actually can get access to doing the things that need to be done. So we were able to secure 600. We really technically could have used more, but that was all that they had because other districts were purchasing large quantities of hotspots, Wi-Fi hotspots as well.
Go ahead, Nathan.
A few questions. Do these hotspots, are they unlimited, and do they have any kind of filter protections on them?
They are unlimited, and I would have to defer to Mark on the sample protection.
Yeah, I can take care of that. What we're doing is setting up an MDM, a mobile device manager in our office. As soon as they're shipped, we'll get those set up the MDM, and then we'll be able to control them. Like we'll know where they're at. If one shows up, in Morgan County, we will know that. We will be able to set criteria. It will all be going through our filtering.
Because her lead lady said you put us all at risk. We want you out of the building.
Mark, you're getting stepped on, Mark. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're setting up an MDM, a mobile device manager, that will actually manage these devices. They will all be filtered. It is unlimited bandwidth that they will be able to use, but everything they do will be filtered through the current filters that we're using at the school. So, no student could get to some site that they're not supposed to.
Oh, good.
We'll have complete control over the device we can shut them down if we want to remotely. We can control them from our centralized office.
Yeah, very good. My concern was that we would have kids with devices that had no protection. So I'm glad to hear that. As far as our plan, are these kind of on a separate data plan, or are they part of our bill? And does that, have we paid up for the data for a year or several months, or we pay month to month?
What we did is we set up a plan currently for 3 months. They're basically giving us the devices. All we pay for is the bandwidth. So it's basically, I think it comes out to $21 a device per month. So that will be part of it. We've also been in discussions about if people want to donate, they can donate money to help us pay for this bill. You know, several avenues we're approaching that way as well.
Sorry. Are we requiring these parents to sign for these devices, that they're responsible for them?
What we're doing currently in the next couple of days, a survey is going out from the schools. Ms. Witt created a survey today that was really awesome. So she's going to distribute that to all the principals. They will distribute that to the parents. And the way we're going to work it is we have a spreadsheet set up, and the principals saw this today. They don't have the real one, but they saw one similar to what we're going to use. So the teachers, the way it will work, if I want to take a Chromebook home and I want to take a MiFi home, we will barcode those information. So we'll have that in a spreadsheet. And along with that, there will be a document. It's a 2-page, basically acceptable use policy that if you take this device, you abide by our acceptable use. We're going to post that basically on the schoolhouse door, on our website, on social media. So what that will do, we thought about getting somebody to sign it, but then that would be more contact for our people. So what we thought we would do, we're going to just say, if you agree to take this, here's the barcode for one device, the barcode for the MiFi. If you need both devices, you may only need a Chromebook. But if you need both devices, we'll get the barcode off of each of those and put the form inside of your Chromebook or whatever packet we have, and just slide that across the table, hopefully 6 feet away, and then the parent can retrieve that. So the only way they can get this is basically by verbally agreeing, or they will know by reading the document that they accept our acceptable use for these devices.
And financial responsibility as well. Should they lose them or destroy them, or through no fault of their own? I mean, if they,
Correct. We have all that in the document.
Okay. And then is there a plan to recover all these devices at the end of the semester, or when we start up school again in the fall, or what's the intent behind that?
Probably the way we'll do that is kind of like we're doing the textbooks. You know, we can shut them off at any time. That,
okay.
You know, if this thing ends July the 1st, you know, we could shut it off July the 1st. If we want to go to August 1st, whatever we want to do. And then they will just return them back. And since we have the spreadsheet, we'll be able to check off which one came back and which one we did not receive. And the same thing if we do with breakage, our plan on that is, say I broke a Chromebook, I take it back to school, I put it in a bin, then we will issue them another one, and we will leave that basically sitting in that bin for a few days and then disinfect it and then start repairing it. We've got an emergency PO I'm working on now to get extra batteries, because we know that's one of our biggest concerns is our older Chromebooks, the battery's not lasting.
Got it. Okay.
So based on that, we're not going to take these up at the official close of school. We're actually going to let them keep them over the summer if necessary.
I guess that's yet to be determined. You know, if they need to go to summer school or something along those lines, you know, we could allow that for them, you know, to use it then. I mean, we basically signed a 3-month contract, so, you know, it's good for 3 months at this point.
Okay.
Any other discussions, comments? Did I see somebody? Okay. If there's no other discussion or comments, we'll go to a vote. District 1. Sorry.
Aye. Sorry.
Sorry. District 2.
Did we motion?
Yes, we did. District 1 and District 2.
Okay. Yes. Aye.
Thank you. District 3.
Aye.
District 5.
Aye.
And I am an aye as well. Thank you. Okay. Mr. Perkins.
I keep forgetting that audio button. I recommend approval of the technology grant as outlined.
Motion?
Second.
So I have a motion from District 1 and a second from District 3 for the recommendation for approval of technology grant. Any further discussion on that? I think Mr. Wilson gave us a pretty good overview of what's going to happen.
He did. Refresh my memory on where these funds are coming from. The match.
I would defer that to Miss O'Bannon.
Yeah.
Ms. Doe,
Yes.
the cash match it's required to, it would come from local funds. It'll be something that we work into next year's budget with our any local funds that we can carry over at the end of the year. I'm already in the process of working on next year's budget. So when we were approached by this, Dr. Ballard, Mr. Wilson, the leadership team talked with Mr. Perkins. It was an initiative we felt like $116,000 was not a lot of skin to put in the game for $1 million. So it will be in next year's budget that I'm already working on, but it's from local funds.
So you're not worried about next year's local funds, right?
No, ma'am, not at this point. We need to know, it depends on how long we're in this situation. None of us have that crystal ball that Mr. Solly was talking about, but I'm receiving, and I'm sure you are, legislative updates daily from SSA, AASB, as well as ASBO, and we're working and looking at the flexibility the state's giving us to carry over funds, and also looking at our sales taxes and how that might look after we get past the third quarter. Again, at this point, no, I think we're going to be fine. Just depends on when we come out from under all this.
Okay, thanks.
Uh-huh.
Thank you. Any additional questions or discussion? If there are none, District 1?
Aye.
District 2?
Aye.
District 3?
Aye.
District 5?
Aye.
And the chair is an aye as well.
All right.
Perfect.
Item C, I recommend approval of the personnel items as attached.
Motion.
Oh boy.
I'll take a second.
I got a motion from District 1 or District 2 and a second.
Yeah.
Second from
Three.
District 3. Okay. So District 2 is the motion and District 3 is the second. Okay. Any discussion on I'm sorry, I have a recommendation for approval of personal items. Any discussion? If there is no discussion, District 1?
Aye.
District 2?
Aye.
District 3?
Aye.
District 5?
Aye.
And the chair is an aye. Okay, I think that is the last item on the agenda. Let me pull this back up. Yes, it is. Is there anything else that anybody had questions on or anything that they needed to get some clarification on from either Mr. Perkins or Mr. Solly or anybody else? I know, Alan, we went to phase 3 of our feeding program today. Briefly and just really briefly, can you kind of just go over how that is going to work? I know that the letter you sent out was pretty specific, but the schools are going to donate what foods they have currently now to these community groups that are going to assist in the distribution. And then once that is done, are they going to continue to donate? Are we going to continue to get supplies in and continue to donate to facilitate the feeding of our students?
So a lot of the foods that we're donating, that we're donating now, are items that may spoil if we don't get rid of them now. So we're trying to give them to these organizations to make sure that our kids get those particular items. I do want to defer to Dr. Ballard since she's worked really, really close with the organization. So Dr. Ballard, if you can kind of give an overview of our phase 3.
Well, good evening. It has been an honor to work with our great team as well as community organizations. This is an amazing community and everyone has come together. In this planning process of our 3 different phases, of course, our school leadership team was involved as well as churches and community organizations. And so it's just been a great collaboration. As we're moving into phase 3, the community organizations are working very closely with our school counselors and social workers and our entire student services team as we have truly identified students who we know who really need support right now and their families. This also gives us certain liberties to potentially transport. The organizations can transport meals to homes. That was not something that we could do from a district level or school system level, but the organizations can do that. And so we have a system in place where students will continue to receive opportunities for resources, some families' groceries. I mean, it's just been amazing working with our community. And so the counselors and social workers, we had a meeting today. They are aware of the process and we're excited to partner with such great organizations. Our CMP supervisor, Barb, has already been coordinating with those organizations, and some are scheduled to pick up some items that we have available, and we're working with them based upon their storage capacity. So that's where we are now, and so far things have transitioned very well.
So that it's not a daily thing, as I understand. If they need it, they call that 211 number and they go to their designated locations to pick up whatever they need. Are they given 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, 5 days worth of food, or how is it distributed out?
Sure. Different organizations are supporting in different ways. And so for some, there are opportunities for families to pick up groceries that may support the family for the week. Other organizations will still continue to support our students through our Lunches of Love program. So students will have opportunities for that as well. And so every organization is doing something slightly different, but overall, the organizations are really covering the needs of our community. Families can also call 211, and 211 provides additional services outside of food. So if families need some other types of support, 211 shares that information with them. And so it's really been, overall, it's almost a North Alabama collaboration. Our social workers are continuing to use Charity Tracker as a case management system that's used across North Alabama. And that's been a great resource and tool for families who need support during this time as well.
Is there a phase 4 or is phase 3 the end of the phases?
Phase 3 is, we've created 3 phases for our feeding program. Now, it doesn't mean that we can't potentially look at, as things change, going back to phase 2. That could be a possibility if, you know, deemed safe for us to do that.
Yeah, and is there, once the stay at home order is lifted and we move into the summer, there's an intent to go back to the summer feeding programs?
That would be our desire to do that. We didn't want to move into, to be quite honest, we really didn't want to move into phase 3, but it was deemed important at this time for us. But that will be the desire should that be the approved recommendation.
Thanks, Ms. Ballard. Appreciate it. All right. Anything else? Any other questions or comments from the board members? I was looking at the calendar as we were talking too. The next meeting is the 23rd of April. So based on the current order, it looks like we'll be doing this type of meeting scenario again on the 23rd of April, which is a regular session. But we can also look at that. If there's no reason to have a meeting, if there's nothing that's coming up, and Mr. Perkins and I will work through that together. If there's no need to meet, then we can go ahead and default. I don't necessarily want to do work sessions. As a matter of fact, I don't think we can do a work session in this environment. So we're strictly have to stick to whatever the guidelines are based on the proclamation. So, Sherry.
There's generally some, kind of year-end things happen typically. I guess those things will continue as far as like assessing personnel and that kind of thing.
Yes, ma'am. Yes. Those are things that we are looking at. I think more of the personnel items will be in May. I think the first week in May, the first board meeting in May. But there are some items that we're looking at for April, and one of those things is the salary schedule. I know a couple of weeks ago I've kind of sent you all some information just to make you aware, but we do need to go ahead and get the salary schedule voted on. So that we can get that information out in far enough advance so that we won't run into some of the same issues that we ran into last year.
That's a good point. So there is probably a need to keep the 23rd of April meeting on the calendar, at least at this moment, and then we'll assess that moving forward. But those type of things certainly do fall into the proclamation on the realm. All right. Nathan, is there anything that you needed to bring up or anything else?
No, sir.
Angie, anything?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you for joining. I know that you have had a busy day today, so I appreciate you being able to spend a few moments with us.
It was actually quite relaxing compared to my other meetings.
Yes, you didn't get bothered. There's no one running into your room there.
Yeah, I thank God for a mute button.
Mary Louise, anything?
No, I'm good.
Thank you. Sherry, did you have anything else?
No, I'm good.
Okay, thank you. I think this worked out pretty well. A little bit different format, but I think we did pretty good for our first try. I was telling Mary Louise before the board meeting started, I says, well, she's seen a whole lot of stuff in her 10, 12 years on the board, and this has got to be capping it all, I think. So.
Amen.
Yeah. All right. Well, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
I have a motion from District 1 and a second from District 2. Any discussion?
Yes, I'm going to go get a pizza out of the freezer.
Sounds good.
It's a joke.
All right. All those in favor of motion of adjourning, say aye. District 1.
Aye.
District 2.
Aye.
District 3.
Aye.
District 5.
Aye.
And the chair is an aye. Thank you all very much for attending this evening. We'll catch up with everybody later. Thank you, Mr. Perkins.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you all.